One. Okay. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you all today?
Doing all right.
Good.
Yeah, I'm good.
It's good to
Pretty
hear.
good.
It's a lovely I guess it's like early evening at this point.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask you guys. Ask you guys a question. Did
First
you
of
hear
all,
about
welcome back.
By the
to
way,
this-
yeah. By the
First
way,
of all,
hi.
welcome back to.
Welcome back to SportCulation.
Welcome back.
We took Spook Week off, so we're here again. I have to ask you guys a question. Did you hear about Whole Foods banning their employees from wearing poppies and then immediately
Yeah, I did.
extending it because Doug
I
Ford
was
went after him?
Yes, that
I
was
was
super
sitting right here
unpopular.
during
Yeah.
work.
Right across the board, bipartisan
And
support.
TV24 had Doug saying he's gonna
Yep.
implement a law to change that.
Yep. Doug Ford went after him. The reason I bring this up is because there was an incident in regards to poppies that took place almost a year ago regarding Mr. Don Cherry and his famous, at this point infamous, I guess you would say, tirade on Hockey Night in Canada in regards to people wearing poppies on Remembrance Day, talking about, well, you people with your milk and honey, and these veterans fought to make sure that you could live the life you live. Now, let's just say, people took that a certain way, and Don's comments were, of course, nullified and taken negatively by fans of Hockey Night in Canada. And in turn of such, Sportsnet and CBC decided to let Don Cherry go, effectively ending Coach's Corner on Hockey Night in Canada. Now, for the listeners out there that have been around for a little while, you might know that when we started this podcast almost a year ago, the first episode we did was talking about hockey culture in the wake of the Bill Peters firing in regards to his racist comments towards player Akim Aliyu. Here we are a year later talking about that and whether or not things have really been different between this last year and now, following the firing of Don Cherry, the firing of Bill Peters, the firing of Mike Babcock, the starting of the Hockey Diversity Alliance, and everything that's happened in between. So, I think the best place to start first is with the firing of Don Cherry and the effect that it had, the ripple that it had on the NHL. You know, and one thing I've realized, and I've watched a lot of other podcasts like Steve Dangles and Spit and Chicklets on Barstool Sports. Those guys are pretty good too. Talk about Don and how you have to remember that what Don does and what Don has said in regards to hockey. He said some very controversial things over his 60 something years of his career. But that's just Don. Don lives in a certain time period where that was okay. Now, obviously, he's changed up a bit, but he's still the same old Don Cherry. And following his firing, it's become prevalent almost that the culture of hockey as we know it needs to evolve. And in the wake of the firings of these coaches, only so much of a difference has been made. Right? Now then, we fast forward to this year, of course, 2020. It's been a fucking wild year with COVID and whatnot. But of course, we've had the murder of George Floyd and, the Black Lives Matter movement and protest really coming about. And in that, we had the Hockey Diversity Alliance coming in. The Hockey Diversity Alliance being founded by current NHLers, Evander Kane and Akim Aliyu, who was at the center of the Bill Peters controversy not 1 year ago. Also including now retired Trevor Daley, Anthony Duclair, Matt Dumba, Wayne Simmons, Nazem Kadri. He's on this? Okay, that's a surprise to me. I just found that out right now. And the HDA's mission, as far as I'm aware, is to make sure that we have equality within player base and coach base in the NHL. Do I think that this will take a while to really get used to? Yes, because these things just don't happen overnight. But my question to you guys is the NHL listening? And we've asked this before on a couple episodes that we've done about this already. But with a group like the HDA, will the NHL actually listen this time around?
I think they listen, but they know where the money in the pocketbook's coming. They know what's relevant to their organization. And it's a big difference when you have a majority of your people, of a different demographic representing your sport than the NBA or even in baseball. Sorry, I think I know where the money is being spent, and I think the NHL knows where the money is coming from and who their demographic is. I think that when a certain demographic represents your sport at a bigger margin, like baseball and basketball, there's a difference. But I think they've been listening. I think they are listening. I think they're entitled to listen. But at the same time, there's not much that they can do. It is their world.
Wow. So you don't think there's any hope for the future?
There's no hope in that.
It's hard for me to hope when it was right in your face. There are literally 3 other leagues four other leagues, despite what the president at the time was saying. You can't be taking a knee during the anthem. You can't be boycotting a game because of situations that happen in political life. And yet these players and these people are taking a stand, and the organizations are backing them. The NBA
It wasn't even political life. It was just life.
It's just events, and the NBA supported their players in the best way that they could legally, because they also know where their pocketbooks come from. They know the answer to a higher power. MLB did what they could, but it wasn't really that big a deal because it's all owner based. The NFL, they are standing tall with it. They have their problems. We all know Goodwin does not appreciate the knee, but he has to let it slide.
He has to respect the knee
because of the fact that they represent your league.
Yeah.
The NHL doesn't have those problems, right? The NHL knows who's in their league. They know who they cater to, and they're gonna try their best to accommodate. Of course, that this is the way the times are rolling. But if it comes to shove, I don't see them changing their ways.
Right. But the reason, so following up with this is, actions being taken by the NHL. Now, in regards to the firing of Don, that wasn't on the NHL, that was on Rogers. Right. And they acted pretty quickly about that, because he had said all that Saturday night for Hockey Night in Canada. And then by Monday, he was let go. So in a 48-hour span, Don Cherry was let go. Now, the NHL, I don't know if they had anything to do with that in regards to Don being let go. But as we've seen already with coaches being under fire for things they've said or things they've done, where they have gotten away with it for a very long time with the NHL knowing. And in that, I ask, how do I even put this?
Well,
it's so confusing.
How many days has it been? How many days has it been since the diversity thing has happened?
They've started
and how many
during the playoffs, right?
What small steps do you consider as steps towards this change? Because for them to have that whole moment of silence thing, and to have their whole flag and have these people speak before some of the games, before we got into the whole real playoff rounds, I'm sure you guys remember those times.
Yes.
We all watched those games.
Yeah.
Are those small steps, are they good? Are they sorry, there's a different word for it. Are they right now, or should they not be taking bigger strides? What small steps do we consider steps, and what do we not consider steps?
Right. Well, it also depends on the mission of the group. And as I'm looking through the website right now,
nothing they've done is a step. Nothing.
Well, again, they've only been around for a few months, right?
But I think they started the Hockey Diversity Alliance so that they could change this culture that has been kind of been holding them back for quite some time, being in a very old school mentality of being aggressive, and then also with that comes a lot of
remarks
and microaggressions
and,
and things that are very racist in nature, and lots of people coaches and people of seniority abusing their power, and so I think the idea is to just stop it as soon as possible, because hockey is already losing support as basketball grow stronger, as
Yep.
soccer gets more sprouts its legs in North America, as
Yep.
as kids start looking at esports, as
Yep.
attention starts going to other places. NHL is not going to have that much of a future. Hockey is not going to have that much of a future unless they change things to change with the times, to allow more people to want to get to get into the sport. And like it in people's minds, it's still like a very like, oh, hockey, yeah, it's that sport for white people.
White
Like
dudes.
it's still ingrained in people's minds.
Yep.
And so I think, yeah, like I do empathize with and also share a little bit of Parse's frustration with how slow that they've been taking these measures. Like NHL, they launched so the Hockey Diversity Alliance was launched, and then they severed their ties because they weren't doing enough. And yet you still had like not so long ago, a month ago, there was talks about the Arizona Coyotes drafting this kid who had this history
of
bullying, of making racist taunts at a student.
And that I want to get into like in a little bit of detail, actually, because so just before we carry on with it, the Hockey Diversity Alliance is as they're putting in their on their website as to what they support: grassroots hockey development and equipment programs, anti-racism and unconscious bias education programs. That's a big one. Social justice initiatives in support of Black, Indigenous, and racialized communities, especially in hockey, absolutely, because everyone's white. Administration and fundraising, scholarships for qualified youth players, which I think should be a much bigger thing, especially if you're going for an NCAA scholarship. And executive training and coaching programs, which also is important because you do not see a lot of POC, youth hockey coaches out there. It's mainly like your local white dude, like your local white dad or something. Now, this is where things get fun. And by fun, I mean ugly.
The NHL.
Because, carry on.
The NHL is continuing with their privilege of ignoring their responsibilities. That's what it is. It's
because they've gotten away with it for so long, they can keep getting
saying
away
that you're so used to your privilege that you're unable to at least see the other side and have that represented with you. They would rather see it as a separate entity of themselves. That is abysmal.
Yeah, I think from what I can gather, it's not like it seems more of like a complacency or like a laziness from the people at the top, who say like, it was like the players that really,
the players have stepped up more than the organization has.
Yeah, when Jacob Blake happened and like the NBA players decided to cancel their games,
they
and
had
then
boycotted
the whole
and canceled
league
games.
decided to do that.
Yeah.
Like NHL was slow to make
the
that
NHL
call.
ran their games that day.
Yeah, and like the players were just like, what's going on? Why are we
why are we doing this?
Why are we doing this?
We're
kind of missing the gun here.
Yeah, and there's this amazing video of after the Jacob Blake shooting had happened, where they decided to run games that day. Well, the East did. The Western Conference said, we're not fucking playing. You're not getting us to play today. And there's this beautiful, beautiful press conference that was done by the remaining Western Conference teams, all side by side, speaking about what had happened and why the NHL was wrong in not shutting down the league that day. And it's a great sight to see. And a lot of those players that were involved, especially in the West, are part of the HDA. Now, I have a question before we carry on to this whole thing with Arizona. Would you call it complacency or would you call it ignorance?
I don't think it's either.
Okay.
I think those are pretty steep allegations to make on behalf of the NHL. Since an organization, theirs are Yeah, these are intelligent people, but
Right.
I think they are abusing their power. They are taking the road of I don't want to say complacency, but they're taking the high road. They're saying to themselves, look, this is a situation, but we are separate from that. Therefore, we run our organization as it is itself. We will run it the same way we run it all the time because we're separate from everything else. We didn't have a stake in that. Therefore, why should we react? And everybody else is reacting because these people are still people. They're still human beings. You still exist in an economy. What are you doing?
Right. I think what might happen in order for like the guys at the top to just like, if they aren't taking action swiftly or fast enough, then the only other option I see forward is the players forcing this upon the league, because that's basically what happened when the players basically tried to get NHL to cancel their games after the
And a lot of
Jacob
good
Blake thing.
things happen. Players push the league.
Yeah,
I mean,
because
Yusuf, you have an extent knowledge on the 1995 lockout, on previous lockouts that have
Yep,
happened.
the 95
Players
lockout, the
have a
04-05 lockout, the 2012 lockout, yeah.
They have a lot of power, but
Yep.
it shouldn't come from the player. This should be coming from the people who call the shots at the top, and for the top to not be doing it, and then also then not denouncing people at the bottom who are also being racist or anything like that. I mean, you have people in the NHL draft in this spotlight, and you didn't do your research before you even got to that point.
Well, it wasn't doing the research. Like so one of their statements that they said was, "We believe that we want to give this person a second chance after the person who was drafted or considered to be drafted had issued letters of apology to all the 31 teams or 32 teams, I guess, with the Seattle Kraken." Wait, is that right?
Yeah, not counting Kraken, because Kraken didn't draft this year.
Yeah, okay.
They draft next year. Yeah.
So, and making that apology.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
take a fact check real quick. 1994 to 95, but that's technically a 95 season.
Yeah, well, it was like half a year. It was only
1994, 1995. They reached an agreement in the summer of 95.
Yeah.
With regards to the player, I think unfortunately, like the players in sports do seem to have to take that that push to push the board and the organization, because that's what happened with NBA, and that's definitely what happened with NFL, with with Colin Kaepernick leading the charge at first, and I think that would be the most likely, what I predict the most likely scenario for having any sort of like fundamental change. Yeah. So
that's well said, Anton.
I think that's my prediction, just like based off of historical evidence based of, because people generally, fans will, the first people they follow, obviously the team logo, but then also then they'll follow who in terms of influence still look at their favorite players,
Exactly.
Austin Matthews, Alex
Sidney
Ovechkin,
Crosby, McDavid.
Sidney Crosby. Like
they'll name a player before they name the team.
Yeah, they'll name a player before they'll name the coach, before they'll name the GM, right?
Yeah.
Only the ecstatic fans and the nerds like really get into like the board and everything. So I think the players might have to end up taking the charge.
For sure.
Yeah. Now, if you're wondering what we're talking about with the Arizona Coyotes, here's some context for you, folks. Some little educational context. Parse, where are you? Oh, well, he's gone. Anyways, so
I didn't go anywhere. Well, there's an interesting fact about coyotes. They're coyotes.
They are indeed. They are dogs. And oh wait, wrong coyotes. So the Arizona Coyotes have had, I think, the worst luck this year, in that their GM left them literally before the playoffs started and just walked off into the sunset, never to return again. they lost their first-round draft pick this year because of basically they cheated the draft in that they had people coming in to do combines before reporting time was.
Oh boy.
And so they lost their first rounder from that. They didn't have any second or third rounders because they traded all of them so they could
Talk about
take
Tyler.
up space.
Talk about
Now,
Tyler.
it's fucking Tyler. Now, the first pick they had in the whole draft this year was in the 4th round. And they had picked with the 111th pick. This is quoting from CBC, by the way. A young player named Mitchell Miller. Now, Mitchell Miller, don't really know much about him because he's a 4th rounder. I don't pay attention to 4th rounders. But a lot of flack and criticism came about over the last, I want to say 3 weeks at this point. Like it's been, 2-3 weeks in regards to the fact that this kid has gone to juvie. He's got a record. And so from the CBC article, and I quote, the Arizona Coyotes have been taking criticism for selecting him in the 4th round earlier, despite knowing of his 2016 assault conviction. Arizona acknowledged that Arizona had acknowledged that they knew about the incident when they selected Miller 111th overall. The incident in question was that he had been slandering racist language and whatnot to a young black classmate of his when they were younger. Now, you got to remember, Mitchell Miller, I think, at the time of this, is 18 or 19 years old. So you would have been like 15, 16.
Okay.
Right? And from what we've gathered is that the impact that it has had on the young man and his family has been obviously very consequential. And there have been no form of apology from Mitchell Miller in regards to it. Now, as of obviously today, because it's been about a week since it all happened, the Arizona Coyotes have renounced their rights for the draft pick and for Mitchell Miller after saying that they had learned more about his bullying habits, who also had disabilities. So it's not like it could get any worse than that, right? Like, oh, God, how could you get worse?
Wow.
A statement from president of the Arizona Coyotes, Xavier Gutierrez, had said, "We do not condone this type of behavior, but embrace this as a teachable moment to work with Mitchell to make him accountable for his actions and provide him with an opportunity to be a leader in anti-bullying and anti-racism efforts."
That's
Now,
just them not trying to lose the pick.
Right, basically. Now, I had gone over this when it had happened with Tyler, who we know who's been on the show before, and another couple friends of ours. We were talking, if this is Arizona's excuse to try and fix this kid and say we're going to be a good influence on him to make sure he doesn't do this again, I don't buy it. I don't buy it. The other thing is, you knowingly picked this kid in the draft when at the same time the Hockey Diversity Alliance, who we've just been speaking about, were bursting with joy that Quentin Byfield got picked at 2nd overall this year. He is the highest picked black player in NHL history. And then that happens? On top of that, Xavier Gutierrez, the president of the Coyotes, is the first non-white executive in the NHL and has talked about bringing more POCs into the NHL and leading a charge for there to be a new era in the NHL for teams to be not super white dominated, obviously. And then you go and do this. Knowingly you go and do that. Brian Burke of Sportsnet, former GM, crankiest hamster in the world. I have his book too. It's a really good book. Has spoken out in regards to it. And he mentions this all the time during his time as a GM. If he finds out these things about these kids, there's no way he's drafting them. And then, these things go to other GMs and they sort of look at it and be like, why would we draft this kid if this kid's got a record? Especially as a rookie, we don't know how he's going to be. If he says he's shaped up, we can only find that out on the ice. But do we want to take that risk or pick someone else that'll be better for us? Right? So as I was reading more into this, I find out, well, these teams knew that this kid had a record. Or at least some teams did. I don't know the exact details of it. as I'm looking through this. But here we go. So Miller had sent a letter to all 31 teams acknowledging what happened and apologizing for his behavior. Apologizing for his behavior to the NHL, not apologizing to the family involved that he had bullied. These teams knew, and as Brian Burke and some other GMs have said, we find this out, we're not even considering him on our draft board. We're just not going to. Yeah, we could fix him up, we could change him. We're not going to do that. We're not taking that risk because we could pick someone else. Why do we do that? The question here is not really a do you think question, but I guess, like, you know, if we had been in the shoes of the Coyotes or any other team, would we be willing to give this individual a chance in the NHL? And I feel like Parse would have a little bit to say about it. So
not after the trade we made during the trade deadline.
Never mind. I mean, okay, Parse, I don't mean Stan Bowman. I don't have to get you angry. We're not talking about Stan Bowman. But say you were in charge of Arizona. Say you got Stan Bowman out of Chicago and you became the GM of the Blackhawks.
Yeah.
And your scouts told you, well, there's this kid named Mitchell Miller. He's not bad, but he has this criminal record behind him. Do we take the risk on him?
I can't risk the PR. I can't risk the image that we have. We're already fighting the logo problem. Yeah. Why would I go ahead and try to deal with this, right? And I really thank the Coyotes, because if they didn't do this, it would have flew under the radar.
Maybe someone needed to screw up.
Yeah, exactly.
In order for everyone else to go like, let's not do that.
Right now, if this didn't happen at this global scale, we would have never heard about it. He would have probably went to Russia and then probably to Sweden, played a little bit out there to amend for his mistakes, and then it would have been swept under the rug at 26, 27 years of age. Instead, we got it now, and I hope he doesn't get hired at all.
Yeah, maybe if it was like, so he's like 18, right? And the whole like harassment and bullying and abuse, like that happened when he was 16, 17, right? What does the story say?
Old enough to know what he was doing. I'll tell you that.
I'm just curious.
Miller pleaded guilty at 14.
So this was still pretty recent. Yeah. And so like, if if it was later on, like, he was in his 20s and he had like done like become an ambassador for anti-bullying and anti-racism campaigns and all that stuff, then yeah, I guess maybe at that point. But like, there's just so much happening at that moment that somehow Arizona Coyotes thought it was a good idea to go through with it and say like, oh, we can help him, we can fix him to, or like, guide him toward
to be a better person,
better anti-bullying, anti-racist. Like, he in the future, I like to think of myself as an optimist. I think he probably can become a better person. And
he's out of a job right now.
See, that's the thing.
But SportCulation, Yusuf, Anton, Parse, he was 14. He was a minor. No, I'm taking that excuse.
I think it's
juvie happens at 11, which means you have full knowledge of what you're doing. So no.
I think it's like for right now. Yeah, if I was coach. Definitely not. That's not even a question, especially like a coach at this time too, just like thinking from like a PR business perspective.
2020 like am I sure 2020 is a very transformative year.
Yeah, like are you sure that's really, like if like down the line he like, gets better and all that stuff and like becomes a champion for anti-bullying and all that stuff, and he's still playing hockey at the same level that he is, then maybe. But it was just like how many people did they have to go through that someone decided, let's make that trade, let's make that draft. There was a certain number of people who thought that it was an okay idea. So, but yeah.
You know, like now, obviously, the report is that Mitchell Miller has become a free agent. Obviously, I don't see any other team in the league picking him up at any time soon. I highly doubt it. If anything, I think this kid's probably gonna go play in like Sweden or something, play like in the SHL, or even go to Russia, play in the KHL for a bit. And maybe he'll come back to the US and say, "Hey, look, you know, I've grown up. I've tried to make a change, and I want to prove that I've made a change." Whether or not teams then will accept it, we can't really say now. We can only wait, right? But, you know, especially for everything that's happened in 2020 so far, and for this to be the most recent thing after this whole mess of a year, I don't want to blame it all on just bad timing that this news broke out. But, you know, I know people are saying like, oh, you got to feel bad for the kid because, you know, yada, 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 like timing of the news and his draft and everything. It's like, well, sure, but this could have been solved had he actually apologized to the family that he had, to the individual he had assaulted on his family, and sort of,
I don't even know if that would have been
hard. Actually, no.
Like, it's still like too recent.
It is, yeah.
If you want to feel sorry for somebody, and this is transferring sports, but if you want to feel sorry for somebody, feel sorry for Kevin Ware. He broke his leg playing for Louisville, was probably going to get a contract, maybe a 10-day or even on the bench somewhere, make millions of dollars. And he had a freakish accident that took away his NBA career. Took away his potential NBA career. He was in the NCAA at the time.
Oh, this guy, yeah.
So if you want to feel sorry for somebody, feel sorry for Kevin Ware.
Yeah. Feel bad for those that have lost their career due to injuries or, you know, things like that, like illnesses or, you know, what have you. You know, those are the people I feel like you deserve to feel sympathy for, because they've lost the potential of a great career because of unnatural forces. But for this to happen, and look, I'm not going to say this kid's career is shot, but it kind of looks like it might be. We'll see. Maybe Seattle might pick him up. Probably not.
Yeah,
I doubt it. No,
I don't think they want that bad.
They're gonna crack him into shape.
They're gonna feed him to the Kraken.
You're saying left wing bastion Seattle, the city of Seattle, the left wing bastion.
Yep.
That they will be okay with it.
Like this. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. Like, the further statement in regards to picking him up and everything from Mr. Gutierrez, the president of the Coyotes, you know, we're building a model on and off the ice, and we'll do the right thing for Isaiah Meyer Crothers, who was the individual that was bullied, his family, our fans, and our partners. And this, he had said earlier this year, Mr. Miller is now a free agent and can pursue his dream of becoming an NHL player elsewhere. For a team like Arizona, who is, I guess you would call them like I wouldn't consider them a mid-market team, like small to mid-market team, that really is trying to prove that they're not dog shit. This doesn't help. This doesn't help at all.
Yeah, I remember when we were all talking about how that team franchise should be transferred over to a Canadian city.
It should be the Nordiques.
Helping that case.
Well, you know, like, poor management and everything is a big reason as to why teams will fold. Like, you know, it's why the Nordiques folded. Then again, apparently the former owner of the Nordiques was also like a hardcore racist. But, you know,
Hamilton deserves a team.
Hamilton. But yeah, so in regards to that, and, you know, circling back now with the Hockey Diversity Alliance, they had stated, Evander Kane specifically had put out a message to the NHL and to challenge them and the Coyotes to start practicing what you preach. Okay, if you're going to keep saying inclusivity and all these things, start doing that. There's a reason that the HDA decided to sever their ties with the NHL, is because they just weren't backing up their talk. They just kept saying they're going to do things and be like, look, sunshine and rainbows and everything. It's like, why is there lightning over there? Sunshine and rainbows. Shut up. It's like, the fuck. But I feel like in the wake of this, and this is mentioned in the article, in the CBC article as well, is that the HDA had pointed to what is item number 6 of their pledge, which says, we will not support, partner with, or accept support from any organization that has engaged in, promoted, or failed to appropriately respond to racist conduct in their organization of any kind. So when you have the NHL who have fired, or at least their organization, like the Flames, fired Bill Peters in the wake of everything he had done. Now, granted, Mike Babcock was not fired for horrible things, but you find out about him later. Don Cherry fired for his xenophobic comments in regards to wearing poppies and Remembrance Day. These were not decisions made by the NHL. These were decisions made by organizations within or partnered with the NHL. But the NHL itself, Gary Bettman and his band of elves and the board of directors that sit in New York City, did not take a majority part in that decision. So now, here we are on the something day of November
7th.
Thank you. I don't remember anymore. Every day feels it's just March something at this point because of COVID. Almost a year. Actually, realistically, if you think about it, it's been a year because it is Saturday and
Sure,
yeah. So
about a year.
Yeah, about a year since the firing of Don Cherry, and the NHL's message of pushing the initiative for this culture to come to an end. They're going backwards, I feel like.
I don't know if they're going backwards as much as they're stalling.
I think that's a better way of putting it.
It's just like comparative to everyone else, all the other leagues that are moving forward. Hockey is just, it's not, it's like its actions aren't matching up with what they're saying that they're trying to do.
Right.
So,
I don't know.
Okay, are we giving final thoughts? Is that what we're doing?
I'll give final thoughts in a second. Just the fact that, look, you have your Hockey Diversity Alliance that came together of all, not all, but the minority players coming together because there is a problem in the NHL and it needs to be looked at and solved somehow. Celebrating the fact that, Quentin Byfield got picked 2nd overall, and fucking congrats to him. He's from Newmarket, by the way. Good kid from what I've heard. He's going to be great for LA and will probably enjoy LA. Yeah, good for him.
Got some York region locals.
Yeah, we do. Him, McDavid, it's all good. And it's a beautiful sight to know that a young black player like him picked 2nd overall, especially in a really good draft like this year was, only for, news of young players like him being drafted to be not completely overshadowed, but just slightly shadowed by this news of, oh, by the way, there was this kid in the granted later round who did all this. And it's like, well, NHL, you knew this. Your organizations knew this. The kid was still picked. And they let the pick carry on. And he was technically a member of the Coyotes farm system for a whole 3 weeks until the news blew up. And they did nothing about it in those 3 weeks until it got media coverage. I think, stalling is the best way to put it. Final thoughts, though. I've said this before, and I've said it again. I'll start off here. Do something, NHL. The NBA is handling it well. The NFL is starting to handle it well. The MLB is the MLB, but considering they're majority Dominican and whatnot players, they're doing their job. They're doing what they can in support of this. Even soccer, the professional football, is doing their work, and they're MLS is doing what they can. Even the European leagues are doing what they can. I said this on the previous episode when we covered stuff like this, and I'll say it again. Do something. Anything. And stop trying to claim yourselves as the good guys when these things are happening not under your noses, but you're fully aware of them. And the second they come out, you go, well, we didn't know, but we kind of knew, but actions will be taken. It's like, the hell does that mean anymore? It's like rolling dice. Actions will be taken. All right, roll your dice. What'd you get? A 1. All right, nothing's happening. Do something. Do anything. Parse, Anton?
I'll let Anton go first.
Sure.
Yeah, so basically I've said it before on this episode. Yeah, it's the players that kind of it hinges on them, which it shouldn't hinge completely on the players. It should be on the people who run this league, in addition to everyone else, in addition to the players, in addition to coaches and staff. But it seems like that they'll have to help influence, because they're at an interesting position where they have the most access to both the fans directly and the people at the top. So I feel like it's going to come down to them. But yeah, if hockey doesn't change within the next decade or so, within the next few years, you're going to see a huge decline in it. It's already, like we mentioned before, it's an expensive sport.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they don't, like you said, if they don't do anything, you might, if they don't innovate too, but that could be episode for another time.
That could be another topic for another time.
Yeah, unless they do something, then hockey could become just like going back to a niche sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my thought.
All right, Parse.
I agree with everybody said. I think the NHL needs to do something. I think the NHL needs to, see themselves greater, do something greater. This is embarrassing at the highest form. And I hope things change. I hope the organization realizes that they need to start, if not leading by example, at least following the other organizations who are leading. You copied the NBA when you did your whole restart and lockout. And, not lockout, but I meant with COVID in terms of suspending games, and then, of course, restarting. Then copy them. At least in this. At least let people realize that you believe in what's going on, and that you're a part of the times. Because this is not helping.
Not at all.
Also, unrelated, but I also want to say that Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, has just congratulated Joe Biden. And
that's right, the election was completed today. Speaking of racist things, there you go.
If Angela Merkel is going to congratulate Joe, we should congratulate Joe.
We should.
I respect Angela Merkel a lot.
Angela Merkel is a great leader. Is that your final thoughts, Parse?
That's my final thoughts.
All right. Last thing before we go, I just want to say, do yourself a favor if you're listening. Go check out the most recent episode of the Steve Dangle podcast with Steve, Adam Wilde, and Chesty Blake. They, for the first half of the podcast, interviewed Harnarayan Singh, the host of the Punjabi edition of Hockey Night in Canada, and spoke to him about what it's like being brown and being a hockey fan and all these things, and eventually working his way up to now he's a forefront of what we see in sports media that isn't your typical white dude talking about hockey. And it's a really great interview. I really enjoyed it. I might rewatch it again later, but yeah, do yourself a favor and check that out. Sorry, Don Cherry. I don't know what to tell you. That's it, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening. This has, of course, been the SportCulation Parsecast? Shit. This has been, damn it. This has been the SportCulation podcast.
SportCulation podcast.
This has been the SportCulation podcast. I'm Yusuf.
I'm Anton.
I'm Parse.
I am also
top
Parse.
of mind, Yusuf. Top of mind.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.